Hey y'all, welcome back. Today we're checking out how football has changed dramatically over the years.
Football is called the beautiful game, but its history isn't always pretty. It's come a long way in over 150 years, from questionable tackles to even more questionable kits, through to a Playboy billion-dollar industry.
I'm sorry, what?
Years from questionable tackles to even more questionable...
What in the world? You guys, no. This makes me really uncomfortable. This reminds me of a kid's show called Slim Goodbody. Remember that? Slim Goodbody, brave and true, a man of health, a hero too. Na, 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 na. This guy. And it freaked me out a little bit as a kid, watching him, you know? See the guts on the outside, but no penis.
Kits through to a Playboy billion-dollar industry. Let's take a look at the good, the bad, and the ugly of the beautiful game's evolution. When the game was started way back in the times when children were better seen up chimneys than heard,
Get back up in the chimney, little kid.
the split between rugby and football was defined between attitudes towards kicking or hacking your opponents in the shins, to the point where one of the gentlemen present at the game's origin story said, "If you do away with hacking, you will do away with all the courage and pluck of the game, and I will be bound to bring over a lot of Frenchmen who would beat you with a week's practice." Frenchmen beating aside, times have changed now to the point where if you look at a player funny, you might get sent off. Back when the game was formed, it was seen as a gentleman's sport. The football...
Wait, so it used to be more violent? Is that what they're saying? There was one guy covered in blood. What? And this looks like maybe the 70s or 80s, right? Maybe the 60s. Looks like video footage. Where'd all this blood come from? Whose blood is that? What's it infected with?
The Football Association didn't bother with fouls until they had to, presumably because it wasn't always gentlemen that played the game. This was definitely the case in the glory days of football in the 60s and 70s, when smoking was part of a pre-match workout. Back then, if you threw a punch at a player, knocked him out, or broke his leg, you might get a slap on the wrist or possibly a booking if you were unlucky. The only time players went down wasn't to trick the ref, but because they weren't able to stand. The professional foul only became a thing in England after the 1980 FA Cup final, when Arsenal's Willie Young hacked down Paul Allen of West Ham. Had West Ham not won the game anyway, there would have been a full-scale riot.
I gotta see that again.
80 FA Cup final, when Arsenal's Willie Young hacked down Paul Allen of West Ham.
Wow, that's a cheap move. You can't catch the guy, so you kick his legs out from under him? Yeah, if that was allowed, that would be happening all the time, right?
Had West Ham not won the game anyway, there would have been a full-scale riot. But the incident was enough to prompt the FA to propose the professional foul law, where a player gets a red if they stop a goal-scoring opportunity. It took a massive 10 years before it became an international law of the game, in time for the Italia 90 World Cup. The law was tweaked later to allow for a little bit more leeway in 2016 if a player was genuinely trying to play the ball. And all the laws have been changed over the years, making the game more FA and less MMA, for better or worse.
Hey, what's this, squirting in the face?
And all the laws have been changed over the years, making the game more FA and less...
Is that a joke? Are you allowed to do that?
Genuinely trying to play the ball. And all the laws have been changed over the years, making...
What's this guy's name? Warback? Show me on the internet. Referee sprays player in face. What? Vanishing spray. Ever since they introduced this spray, I've wanted to see a ref just paint a circle around him when he's getting swarmed and just card anyone who steps inside the circle. I don't understand. Vanishing spray.
Well, no card shown, but the foam's come out. And, oh no, not the fancy new boots. Uh-oh, chew on that. Well, we've got carried away too.
It's the one and only Digo Double G.
Mother... Hang on. What? What is this spray? Substance applied to an association football pitch in order to provide a temporary visual marker. It is most often used by the referee to indicate the minimum distance that the defending team may position themselves from the ball during a direct free kick. Okay. That actually seems kind of useful. We don't have that in American football. Okay. That's what it's used for. I thought... This is messed up. This is messed up. You can't do that. Right?
Making the game more FA and less MMA, for better or worse. Wouldn't it be great if teams played with 8 strikers? Well, They used to. When England played Scotland in their first ever international match in 1872, England went with a formation of 1-1-8 and a very defensive 1-2-7 at different times, while Scotland opted for the park the bus method with a 2-2-6. Then when Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney's Wrexham won the Welsh Cup in 1877, the side played a revolutionary pyramid formation of a 2-3-5. This would start a trend that would be helped by the Scottish style of passing football that needed a more balanced setup. Then the introduction of offside in 1925, and more importantly the potential to exploit it, led to Herbert Chapman's Arsenal employing an extra defender to play the offside trap and counter-attack tactics. Fast forward to the 50s, and the powerhouse of the hungriest team at the time, Hungary, coached by Gustav Siebes. He was the first person to adapt formations to suit the opponent that would let wingers support depending if they were defending or attacking. This ideology would evolve and lead to Brazil's iconic 4-3-3 and England's own version of that formation, which would lead to World Cup success in 1966, which no Englishman has ever mentioned since. The Italian defensive methodology of the 70s and 80s, as well as the German attacking throwback of Italia 90, led to teams having the option of choosing a formation that was adaptable and played to their strengths. I, for one, can't wait for a team to bring back the 1-1-8 system.
I'm not familiar with these tactics. 1-1-8, 1-2-7, but now it's become 2-3-5? I wonder why that works better.
Opted for the park the bus method with a 2-2-6.
Park the bus method.
Then when Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney's Wrexham won the Welsh Cup in 1877, the side played a revolutionary pyramid formation of a 2-3-5. This would start a trend that would be helped by the Scottish style of passing football that needed a more balanced setup.
Oh, so the Scottish teams would pass the ball more, so they needed more people spread out to be able to pass it to them, instead of a bunch of people in the back and then just a couple people in front. That's what I'm gathering.
Then the introduction of offside in 1925, and more importantly the potential to exploit it, led to Herbert Chapman's Arsenal employing an extra defender to play the offside trap and counter-attack tactics.
So when offsides became a rule, they started to use that to entrap the other team into a penalty.
Fast forward to the 50s, and the powerhouse of the hungriest team at the time, Hungary, coached by Gustav Siebes. He was the first person to adapt formations to suit the opponent that would let wingers support depending if they were defending or attacking.
Okay, I feel like that is pretty common in American football now. Maybe it wasn't back then. I don't know. But yeah, that seems like a common thing now, right? To watch footage of your opponent coming up a couple weeks before, start seeing what they do, and then changing your tactics to fit them better.
This ideology would evolve and lead to Brazil's iconic 4-3-3 and England's own version of that formation,
4-3-3.
World Cup success in 19...
Okay, that's totally different. 4-3-3. My mind's being blown right now, y'all. I didn't know this was a thing.
1966, which no Englishman has ever mentioned since. The Italian defensive methodology of the 70s and 80s, as well as the German attacking throwback of Italia 90, led to teams having the option of choosing a formation that was adaptable and played to their strengths. I, for one, can't wait for a team to bring back the 1-1-8 system. We're used to breathable, lightweight and possibly too skin-tight fabric with kits these days. Think the complete opposite when the game started. Football kits in the late 1800s were rudimentary, simple, long-sleeve shirts in solid colours, with shorts that weren't short and sturdy leather boots. Endorsements weren't really a thing. As the game began to spread quicker than a player trying to win a penalty, overseas clubs adopted kits similar to those worn in the UK where the game came from. Like Italian giants Juventus, who, in 1903, embraced a black and white strip inspired by the now not-so-giant Notts County. There was the introduction of more intricate designs like the mind-blowing stripes, and shorts became shorter as the FA dropped the rule that players' knickerbockers must cover the knees. Scandalous, but not quite as scandalous as 80s shorts, just yet. The 50s and 60s saw big changes, but not quite as...
How much of that is butt? That's a pretty odd photo. It looks like his leg has detached and his butt is like lower and up underneath him more than it should be. You know what I mean? He's either kicking a ball or dancing.
Scandalous as 80s shorts, just yet. The 50s and 60s saw big changes in kit designs. Shirts became more tailored, often had collars, and club badges with the occasional sponsor. Shirt numbers became normalised, but names would have to wait. The 70s and 80s marked a period of flamboyant designs and bold experimentation, both with players and football kits. Collars disappeared, and V-neck or round neck styles became popular. The static electricity factory of polyester emerged as a primary fabric, enhancing breathability and durability.
Right.
Iconic and bold designs like those of the Admiral kits gained prominence despite being associated with one of the worst England teams of all time. This period also started the disgusting tradition of shirt swapping. In the 1970 World Cup, Bobby Moore and Pelé exchanged sweaty clothes. After this, the tradition spread and became commonplace, as did short shorts that barely kept the boys in the barracks. The 90s ushered in the modern era of kits in all its corporate glory.
Hang on. Why do they trade clothes? That is disgusting. Is that an expression of brotherhood or something? Respect? A tradition in sports where players of opposing teams swap jerseys with each other at the end of a match as a sign of mutual respect. That's disgusting, but beautiful. Shirt swapping is a long-held tradition in association football. The first shirt swap is believed to have taken place at a match between France and England in 1931. The French team lost and asked to keep the English team's shirts as a memento. Odd request. Although habitually done at the conclusion of matches, shirt swaps have also occurred at halftime. Examples include Mario Balotelli swapping shirts with Pepe in 2014. Oh, they do it in the NFL. I didn't know that. Mid-2010s. Odell Beckham Jr., Dwayne Wade did it in basketball? Okay. Yeah, mutual respect. I mean, I like the sportsmanship of it, but that's gross.
More on how the financial side of football has changed later. We started to see a fusion of tradition and innovation in the designs as the new millennium dawned. Technological advancements led to lightweight, moisture-wicking fabrics that improved performance. Sponsors became...
That was brutal. I gotta see that again.
Technological advancements led to lightweight, moisture-wicking fabrics that improved performance. Sponsors became more prominent, and manufacturers began incorporating advanced printing techniques for even more headache-inducing designs. Just like formations, the 21st century for kits introduced a bastardized mix of everything that had gone before. Back before footballs were made from money, they started off as being made out of pigs' bladders. The big problem with this is not all bladders are made equal. They were different shapes and sizes. So it wasn't until the introduction of rubber inner tubes by Richard Linden in 1862 that things started to get a little bit more standardized. It's thought that Linden came up with the idea of using India rubber to make the ball after his wife, who had been helping him blow up the bladders into balls, passed away, likely from a disease she caught from one of the pig's innards, which puts complaining about VAR into perspective.
Check complete. It's fine. Perfect.
When Mitre started mass-producing balls a couple of decades
later, what? I didn't get that.
Which puts complaining about VAR into perspective.
What's VAR? Is that replay? I think that's video replay. Video assisted replay is what I'm going to assume it is. I don't even need to look it up. Right.
Check complete. It's fine. Perfect.
When Mitre started mass-producing balls a couple of decades later, they believed that one of the most important qualities was that the ball could keep its shape, because a cube isn't great for rolling. Because of this, very thick and heavy leather was used, with cow's rump making the best balls and cow's shoulder making the cheaper ones. At the turn of the century, the inner bladders of the balls were made from a strong rubber that could withstand a lot of pressure. Its outer part was made up of leather that was formed of 18 sections. It was dyed dark brown because why not? And it was a nightmare to head, especially as the leather would absorb water it came across. In the 1930 World Cup final, Argentina and Uruguay couldn't agree on which ball to use, as it still wasn't standardized internationally. They agreed to use an Argentinian ball in the first half and a Uruguay equivalent in the second. Argentina were 2-1 up at half-time, only to lose 4-2 at the final whistle. Anyone who experienced this match and or the Jubilani ball of the 2010 World Cup will tell you how important the ball is. Material started to be used between
the what ball?
The 2010 World Cup. A whistle. Anyone who experienced this match and or the Jubilani ball of the 2010 World Cup will...
The Jubilani ball of 2010 World Cup. The ball is made from 8 spherically molded panels and has a texture surface intended to improve aerodynamics. It was consequently developed into the Adidas Tango 12 series of football. Even more than the Fever Nova and Team Geist at the 2 previous tournaments, the Jubulani received pre- and post-tournament criticism. Iker Casillas said, "It is very sad that a competition so important as the World Championship will be played with such a horrible ball." Huh? Similar complaints came from blah 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 and blah blah blah. Italian goalkeeper Gianluigi Buffon, Luigi, said, "The new model is absolutely inadequate, and I think it's shameful letting play such an important competition where a lot of champions take part with a ball like this, while Brazilian striker Luis Fabiano called the ball supernatural as it unpredictably changed direction when traveling through the air." That's not good. Brazilian striker Robinho stated, "For sure the guy who designed this ball never played football, but there's nothing we can do. We have to play with it." Wow. Balls have been doing anything but staying in my gloves. NASA scientists at the Fluid Mechanics Laboratory at NASA's Ames Research Center, Moffett Field, California, tested the performance of the Jubilani design against the predecessor 2006 design, which had also received criticism of its behavior in flight. In discussing the mechanics of the balls, Rabi Mehta, an aerospace engineer at NASA Ames, described the unpredictable behavior as a knuckleball effect. Okay. He explained that when a seamed ball is struck with little spin, it experiences asymmetrical airflow effects as a result of the air close to the surface being affected by those seams. This causes unpredictable movement akin to the intentionally pitched knuckleball in baseball. Yeah, okay. Knuckleball, you hold it like this, and you try to keep it from spinning at all. So you, like push it, sort of. The speed of the ball is the main factor in its behavior, but it is also affected by altitude and wind, where older designs of footballs have a knuckling effect at speeds closer to 30 miles per hour. Mehta predicted the Jubilani to only begin to experience the effect at a higher speed of 45 to 50 miles per hour due to its smoother surface. The higher speed required for the knuckle effect is also more commonly struck speed, particularly following free kicks around the goal area. Okay, now I know.
Anyone who experienced this match and or the Jubilani ball of the 2010 World Cup will tell you how important the ball is. The material started to be used between the inside and outside of the ball after this, and in the 50s it became white to help people see it better with floodlights being introduced.
Smart.
Before this, it must have been like a live spot the ball game. Despite the World Cup final we looked at earlier, no lessons were learned, as a standardised ball wasn't introduced until years later. This was helped by a new design of ball developed by Richard Buckminster Fuller. The Bucky provided the classic clip-art football we're used to, made up of 20 hexagonal and 12 pentagonal surfaces, sewn together to create a near-perfect sphere, which was used for the first time at the 1970 World Cup in Mexico. It was the first design to feature alternating black and white panels, with the hope being that the light and dark combo would allow players to see the swerve on the ball. It wasn't until as late as 1998 that a ball was introduced at the World Cup with a little bit of colour on it. It featured blue and red to complete the tricolour of the host nation, France. Since then, the football has been re-engineered down to 14 moulded as opposed to stitched panels, with the Adidas Teamgeist of 2006, then just the 8 panels of the Jubilani that swang more than a bored middle-aged couple. Now balls come in all shapes and sizes, and that's why it's important to check them at regular intervals. Now it's commonplace to pay players hundreds of...
Wow, I never thought about ball design like that. I guess a smoother surface is not necessarily good.
Now it's commonplace to pay players hundreds of thousands of pounds a week to kick a pig's bladder around.
Hang on, y'all. This is the guy whose eyes are offside. His eyes are offside. His eyes are offside. Whatever his name is, his eyes are offside.
150 years ago, it was illegal to pay your players at all. The biggest scandal in football history at that point came in 1879, when 2 players from Darwin in England were found to be given actual money for their performances. This rocked the footballing world and gave many players and teams ideas of their own. This created a dark web equivalent of backdoor payments, until the FA finally brought in professionalism in 1885. Almost immediately, the market went crazy, causing the leagues to impose a strict wage limit of a huge £4 a week, around just under £500 today. In 1905, the highest transfer fee so far in history was recorded. Alf Common joined Middlesbrough for a giant £1,000, around £120,000 in new money. Small by today's standards, but it set off a chain reaction in fees trending upwards. In 1922, the average weekly wage was increased to an eye-watering £8, and in 1928, David Jack was the first footballer to be transferred for a fee above £10,000 from Bolton to Arsenal. That's about $630k now. The floodgates had opened. After World War II, the UK had announced high spending to recover from the damage done by the conflict, and football was more than happy to oblige, but still had a wage cap of £12 per week, or £506 today. In 1961, the PFA scrapped all of this, and it led to the first player being paid £100 per week. Johnny Haynes. Just 1 year after that, £100,000 was paid for Denis Law to arrive to Manchester United from Torino. That's around £2 million today, but all this was pocket change in comparison to what was to come. Trevor Francis was the first £1 million transfer player in 1979 when Nottingham Forest snapped him up during their glory days. 15 years later, Chris Sutton was paid £10,000 a week, and only 1 year after that, Dennis Bergkamp was paid £25k a week when he joined Arsenal, with defender Stuart Pearce calling it a huge waste of money. He should have waited until post-Ferguson Man United era. In the year 2000, Sol Campbell quadrupled Bergkamp's wages in his move from Spurs to Arsenal. This marked pay increasing from £100 to £100,000 a week in just 40 years. Fast forward to now, and you've got Ronaldo earning over £170 million a year from playing Sunday League football in Saudi Arabia. And
Did $170 million a year? $170 million a year. Wow. Like, what? Why not play for 1 year and then retire? It's actually $200 million. Oh my God. He's paid £3.17 million a week. $4 million a week. $4 million a week. How are they selling that many tickets? How are they making their money? I don't believe there should be pay caps. I think however much they want to pay a player, it's up to them. Good on the player, you know? Way to go. But how do they make their money? TV advertising? I'm shocked. Is he the highest paid athlete? He is. Oh my God, but he made $260 million in 2024. I had no idea. Wow.
Earning over £170 million a year from playing Sunday League football in Saudi Arabia. And a
More
big
than
part of
that.
this massive increase in money is down to our next topic. The first match shown on UK television was not Manchester United v Liverpool or Tottenham v Chelsea. No, it was 1937 with a match between Arsenal and Arsenal reserves to a very select group of people close to the BBC's broadcasting centre of Alexandra Palace. This mighty clash didn't start a trend. This in part was due to worse coverage than when ITV had Premier League rights. In 1946, the BBC broadcast the mighty Barnet versus the formidable Wealdstone. 20 minutes of the first half and 25 minutes of the second were broadcast before it became too dark to see. In the early years of TV's explosion, it was only FA Cup matches and the odd international match that would be shown live. And it took until 1960 for a top-flight league match to be broadcast live for the first time, even though they wish they hadn't. The game was between Blackpool and Bolton Wanderers. It kicked off at 6:50 p.m, but people couldn't watch until 7:30, so that those at the 3 p.m. games could make it home to watch it. This bizarre fear that TV would disrupt the sacred time of English football is still around today. So much so it's written into law. But this game...
Yeah. The TV interferes with the timing. I'm sure about that. I was in, through school, high school and college, I was in the marching band and the drum line. And in high school, I think the whole time I was there, maybe 1 or 2 of the games were televised. It was like a state championship or something. But in college, almost every game was televised. And we used to have TV timeouts. And it would totally change the game. The momentum would be gone. Oh, TV timeout. Everybody sit on your hands for 3 minutes. It's a necessary interruption because you got to get that money, right?
was so dull, it put TV companies off broadcasting live games altogether. The next milestone.
Wait,
this game
what?
was so dull, the time of English football is still around today. So much so it's written into law. But this game was so dull.
Wait. A football association may prohibit the broadcast of games between 14:45 and 17:50 on Saturdays. Wow.
Of English football is still around today. So much so it's written into law. But this
it's
game was
boring?
so dull, it put TV companies off broadcasting live games altogether. The next
Wow.
milestone was the introduction of Match of the Day in 1964, showing highlights of top flight games and ruining the evenings of significant others across the nation. After that, the 1966 World Cup was the first time football had gone global to a wide audience, with games being offered to watch live. But even then,
66.
top flight live games were few and far between, mainly because of the fear I mentioned earlier that people would stop going to stadiums to to watch games. Highlight packages could only be broadcast after 10 p.m. for the same reason. Thank God they did this, because with the amount of live games on now, it's no wonder the stadiums are all empty. It wasn't until the 80s that the Football League decided their games could be broadcast live more often, and that's only because they were struggling for money. A 1983 deal worth a huge £2.6 million a year at the time saw the BBC allowed to show live matches on a Friday and ITV getting to broadcast Sunday afternoon.
£2.6 million a year. Y'all, just in light of knowing how much Cristiano Ronaldo is making, that seems comical. Comical. He makes more than that in a week, and that was for the whole year of TV rights. Gosh, this is opening up so much brainstorming about what I would do with that money. If I was Cristiano Ronaldo, I might start a football streaming service. I'm sure they already have that, right?
Games. But this deal was nothing in comparison to what was around the corner. The biggest clubs in Europe were getting paid big money for coverage, apart from those in the UK, because TV wealth was getting distributed evenly throughout the 4 English leagues. The likes of big clubs Liverpool, Arsenal and Manchester United began to feel that they were missing out. In 1992, First Division clubs all voted unanimously to break away and form the Premier League, which gave Rupert Murdoch's newly formed cable offering Sky leverage to negotiate a deal to cover this new league for the price of just £304 million for 5 years. A steal compared to the £6.7 billion they paid for the latest batch of seasons.
Oh my God. So much money. I guess before going into this, I knew that there's more money now in it than there used to be, but I am flabbergasted at the amount that Cristiano Ronaldo makes, y'all. Cristiano, I know you're watching. I know you're watching my channel every day. I just want you to know that I admire you. And, help me out. That's so much money. Surely he has a charity foundation, the Cristiano Ronaldo Foundation. Oh, he does. Okay. What do they do? What do you guys do? What do they do? Okay, career highlights. Okay. Stay tuned, But what do they do? There are his brands. But what do you do? What do they do? To raise funds and help people in vulnerable situations. Supporting and improving the lives of children and young people in vulnerable situations. Okay, but what does that mean? Cristiano Ronaldo's global philanthropy. Okay. Making a worldwide impact. What's he doing? Children's hospitals. Yes, great. Disaster relief. Great. Support for Syrian refugees. I guess that's great. No, that's great. Yeah, that's great. Blood and bone marrow. That's great. Raising visibility, financial contributions. Oh, that's great. Personal commitment, blah, blah, blah. That's good, y'all. That's good. He's doing good stuff with the money, I could see. Also, though, Cristiano, here at JJLA Reacts, we, don't do anything for charity, but we could if we made some money or accepted a donation. And we already have ways to do that. I have a Patreon page and a Buy Me a Coffee account. You could buy me a coffee. Hey, Ronaldo, Cristiano, Mr. Ronaldo, how about buying me a coffee? It's $5 on buymeacoffee.com. This game really has changed. It's pretty amazing. The tactics have changed. The clothes have changed. The uniforms have changed. The ball has changed. The money has changed. The etiquette has changed. The way people consume the games has changed. Pretty wild. Well, y'all, thanks for watching this with me. Cristiano, give me a call. Email me. I'd like to thank my Buy Me a Coffee folks. I'd like to thank my patrons on Patreon. Thank y'all for watching this with me, and I'll see you next time. Later.